Alrighty my friends, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be working on a 2015 TDI Golf and we got to replace the timing belt. What are we going to do? We're going to start by removing the airbox as we're doing so now. Be careful with this, you guys don't want to rip anything. This kind of just pops up and out, it's not too bad. You disconnect the one sensor, we're going to remove the front air intake. After that we just noticed that the radiators are loose and someone didn't put it back correctly. Next, we're going to remove the two fuel lines that are located to the right of the coolant reservoir. Be careful with them. After this, we're going to hop on with our 10mm socket and we're going to remove the 3 10s that hold the fuel filter in place. Sit that up out of the way. Put your nuts in the tray. You don't want to lose them. Next, we're going to grab our T30 and we're just going to start disconnecting some of the harnesses and the wire brackets sitting up against the timing cover. This is going to be a few minutes doing this because there's a bunch over here. Definitely take your time removing the harnesses and wires. You definitely don't want to break anything. There's a bunch of stuff up against that timing cover. Be sure to put all your nuts and bolts in the tray. You don't want to lose them. So the next 2 lines we're going to be disconnecting are the coolant lines. Be careful with them. They are messy, and have your drain pan ready. After those 2 lines come off, we're working on 2 more. These are going to be our differential pressure sensor hoses. If they're stuck, just grab your pick and work your way around the hose. And then after that's complete, we can take our timing cover off. Next, we're going to grab our 13mm socket, and then we're going to grab our 16mm socket, and we're going to remove 2 more 16s, and 1 in the rear. After this, we're going to jack the car off. We're going to go underneath, and we're going to remove the skid guard. Then that's going to be a T45. Take that skid guard, throw it out of the way, and we're going to remove some coolant. Just drain some coolant just to lower it down a little bit, so when we replace the water pump, we're not making too much of a mess. Before you lower your car, make sure your coolant line's reconnected. You don't want to have any leaks. Now we're going to rotate the pulley on the crank to set timing. And basically what we're doing here is you're going to look for that wheel and that mark, and there's a mark on the engine, and you line them up. And that's how you set timing. Pop that wheel off. Grab our T30. 4 T30s here. Next, we're going to grab the 2 triple square 10s on the serpentine belt tensioner. We're just going to remove that, get that out of the way. Next, we're going to grab and remove the 16mm on the lower engine mount bracket. And then after that's done, we're going to grab the 13 off of that roller because we got to replace that. Next, we're going to jack the engine up. Be careful, we are jacking up on the oil pan, but we're lifting the engine mount up just enough so it floats. And next, we're going to take the 2 18s and remove the upper part of the engine mount. And now all that's left is the bracket, which is held on a total of the 3 16s, but we already removed the 1 lower one, so now we're just going to do the 2 uppers. Usually crack them loose with a ratchet and then take our impact. Now we're removing the bracket. Next, we're going to loosen the belt tensioner with the 15mm wrench and remove that 15mm nut, and then after that's completed, we can start removing the belt. Now we're going to hop on over to the water pump. It's 3 triple square 10s. Be careful with these bolts, you don't want to lose them. Put them in a tray. After you remove all the bolts, we're going to hop over to the harness of the water pump. We're going to disconnect that. Be careful with the upper part of the harness. You don't want to break it because that is staying. Obviously, the lower part that's connected to the water pump is going to be garbage. What breaks on them?
These usually just leak.
They just leak?
This one looks fine. Maybe mild leaking around here, but that's it.
Now we're going to be reinstalling our new water pump. Grab your 3 triple square 10s, put those back in. I usually put them in hand tighten first, and then we'll put them on with a wrench. Now we're going to be setting our timing pins. We're going to put one in the front over here, and then we're going to do the one in the rear. As you can find the spot, and there she is. Now she's in there. Next, we're going to be grabbing our crank lock tool, part number T10490. We're going to be installing that, and we're going to be installing it on the crank. Lock that up nice and tight. Since we installed our 2 pins and our crank lock, we're going to hop over to this roller. It's a 13 mil. Put this on with our impact, give it a little snug. We're good there. And then we're going to hop back over to the water pump. We're going to connect the upper part of the harness. Next, we're going to install the timing belt tensioner. It just slips on into that groove. Do not tighten it. Just put that nut on by hand.
Take a small socket. Yep. And wedge it in here.
Oh.
It'll keep the belt from falling off the lower teeth.
That's a pretty good idea.
And you want all the tension on the front.
All the tension on the front. Wrap it around and just continue until you get to the back.
Yep.
Looks like a glove.
That's the bolt makes it do that.
The bolt?
The little
the socket?
yeah.
Oh.
Because look how tight I have that on the front. I have all the slack back here. This arrow and that hole.
Next, we're going to remove all the locking pins and the crank lock down below. And then after that's all completed, now we're going to reinstall the lower engine mount bracket, which is held on with 3/16. We're going to do the 2/16 now, tighten those on by hand. And then we'll come back with a socket, snug them on a little bit, but leave the bracket loose. Then we have to go down below and install the lower timing cover, which is held on with 4 T30s. Next, we're going to grab our 4 triple square 10s. We're going to install those by hand. Next, we're going to grab our impacts and we're going to tighten down the triple square 10s. After that's completed, we're going to crank over the engine and we're trying to check for timing. As you can see here, we're just bringing the pulley around and we're trying to line it back up with that mark on the engine.
Same within there, see how that lines up?
Yeah, see that. Gotcha. And that tells us that it's perfectly timed?
Perfectly timed. Nothing else needs to be done with time.
Could you also just put the pins back in to also determine?
You can, but the pins are so tight,
Oh, okay.
it'll throw you off. It'll make you think something's wrong.
Next, we're going to install the upper timing cover. After that's completed, we're going to tighten up the upper 2/16s and the lower 16 on the engine bracket. After that, we're going to be connecting the differential pressure sensor lines, and then we're going to connect the 2 coolant lines after that. Don't forget to slide on all your hose clamps. After that, we're going to grab our T30 and we're going to start putting on all the brackets and tightening up all the hoses. A couple T30s here and there. Now we're reinstalling our AdBlue injector wire. There's just a couple clips, one here, one there. We're adding a T30 to the clip up front to a harness bracket. Next, we're going to reinstall our serpentine belt tensioner, which is held on with 2 triple square 10s. Once that's done, we're going to put our serpentine belt back on, and we're going to grab our 16 mil wrench, and we're going to spin counterclockwise to let the belt slide on. After that, we're going to reinstall our upper motor mount, which is held on with 2 13s, 2 16s, and 2 18s. Thrown in the front 16 now. Hand tighten those. Now we're putting in the rear 16. Now we're tightening down both 16s. Now we're going to reinstall the 2 18s. Tightening the 13, putting in the reservoir back in. Now we're going to reinstall our fuel filter, which is held on with 3 10 mil nuts. And I do recommend doing the fuel filter while we're in here. That would be a good part of the service. 110 there, and there's 2 more up front. Next, we're going to reinstall our main fuel lines. Now we're going to connect our add blue line as we're doing so now. Now we're going to do a vacuum test and make sure your coolant lines are all connected. And after that, we can inject the coolant as we're doing so now. Alrighty, my friends, thanks for joining me here today. If you guys enjoyed that video, you know what to do. And don't forget to leave a comment below. What do you want us to work on next?